Let's talk to Ann Widdecombe, former Home Office Minister, of course. Ann, very good morning to you.
Morning to you.
So, here we are, once again, with the Labour government crashing the economy. It's taking me back to the days of old, when Labour didn't used to have very much of a clue about economics. They've been having a go at Liz Truss for so long now that they've now actually made things worse.
Well, indeed. I mean, Labour never did have any reputation for economic competence until Blair came along and more or less adopted the Tory approach.
Yeah.
The Labour approach just doesn't work, never has worked. The idea that you can tax your way out of a problem when all you do is produce disincentives. I mean, you know, it isn't exactly advanced economics to work out that if you raise costs for employers, you cause unemployment. I mean, that is not difficult to work out.
No, it doesn't seem to be, does it? And yet here we are. And they seem to sort of move from one crisis to another because, I mean, not only did we get the story last night of them blocking this national inquiry into grooming gangs, but we awake this morning and that's not even the front page story in most newspapers because it's now moved on to the economy. But let's look back at what happened yesterday because Keir Starmer and several senior members of the cabinet decided to abstain in the vote, even though he ordered every single one of his MPs on the Labour side to vote against the Kemi Badenoch amendment.
Well, it was extraordinary. I think there were very good arguments in both directions. We did hear them in the Commons yesterday, but it was an extraordinary business. You know, if every single Labour MP has got to vote against something of that order of magnitude, then you expect that to be followed through.
Well, I suppose so. But how is it possible that the leadership should get away with abstaining then?
Well, the leadership can get away with anything. Just because it is the leadership, just because it has got a ginormous majority in the Commons, it can A, force anything through that it wants, B, is absolutely unsackable because it will never lose a vote of no confidence in the Commons. And I'm afraid, you know, even if the Labour Party were to rise and revolt about it, they can't change their leader just like that.
No, they can't. And so are you one of those who thinks a national inquiry would probably be unnecessary or too expensive or wouldn't make any difference?
I think on balance, had I been in the Commons yesterday, on balance, I would probably have voted for a national inquiry because I think there are an awful lot of questions and the J inquiry was just slightly limited. On the whole, and I understand why you're asking me this, on the whole, I do not like public inquiries. They're a means of kicking something into the long grass.
Yeah.
But in fact, that didn't need to apply in this case. What Peter Hitchens said about get on prosecuting, doing the rest of it, you can do that anyway. What the Labour Party tried to say is, well, it will hold up all the rest of the children's film. No need for that either. You could have had a public inquiry. But as I say, to me, the argument was very, very finely balanced and certainly had nothing to do with Elon Musk, who bluntly doesn't know what he's talking about.
No. No, I mean, I think we can give Elon Musk credit for raising the issue because I think if it wasn't for Elon Musk, we wouldn't really be talking about it in the way that we are. But you're right, you know, he has made some what you might call glaring errors. And I think he did Nigel Farage a massive favour by then being critical of Nigel Farage and calling for him to step down because it gave Nigel Farage the opportunity to say, well, we don't have to defend everything that Elon Musk says.
Yes, and not only that, but of course his big falling out with Nigel came over Tommy Robinson.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, pretty well everybody, not quite everybody, but pretty well everybody, would be on Nigel's side over this and would say, no, you know, this man must not be anywhere near power.
Yeah. But let's talk about the possibility of an inquiry, because I've become more convinced now that it's perhaps not an inquiry that's required, but it's something slightly more forensic, something slightly more kind of laser focused, if you like, if you forgive the jargon, because it seems as though we sort of know what we're looking for. We know that we need to find out who covered up this stuff and why it was covered up. We know that you know, there are members of the police involved. We know that there are councillors involved. We know that there are very possibly other, you know, well-known individuals involved, as well as the gangs themselves. And so surely what we need is a kind of, I've said, a kind of Elliot Ness style task force almost, which would be made up perhaps of members of the judiciary, members of sort of senior police officers or something, to go after those people, because I think we know who most of them are, don't we?
Well, I think, yes. I mean, there is an argument for saying it isn't enough just to say there was a cover-up. We do need to take specific action. But I think the point about a public inquiry is that you're asking a bit more than who. You're asking why, what were the root causes of the cover-up? Was it a fear of being accused of racism? Was it something else? Was it incompetent? What was it? And I think, as I say, on balance, I mean, I'm not waving flags on this one, but on balance, I think an inquiry might finally clear up those answers.
Well, I don't know if you've seen the story on the front page of the Times this morning, but the Labour Party, in their quest to find a definition of Islamophobia, apparently put grooming gangs as a phrase in inverted commas on a policy paper, and said that the use of that term is racist. Not potentially racist, not possibly racist, but actually racist. And they said that it contributes to hate crimes against Muslims if you use that phrase, which tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it?
Well, it's complete rot. I mean, grooming gang is a statement of fact.
Right.
It's a gang that grooms. That's a statement of fact. And, you know, it could be a white gang, a black gang, an Asian gang. It could be in any sort of gang. But it's a grooming gang, and it cannot be racist in its own right, that term, can't be.
No, exactly. But what I'm saying is that if that's the kind of language that they are trying to stop using, then it tells you why perhaps they're not as good and thorough as they ought to have been at investigating such things.
Well, I mean, I don't think you can blame, you know, the Labour Party for the quality of the investigation. But I think what you can blame them for is the creation of what is now called woke. But the creation of this idea that language alone can determine, you know, whole societal attitudes. And it is a nonsense. And as I say, you know, you have a statement of fact, a grooming gang. That's a statement of fact.
Yeah, absolutely right. And good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Ann Widdecombe, former Home Office Minister.